Today I'm talking about a few finished objects, including a couple test knits and what I've been working on and what I've been reading. So grab a beverage, grab your current work in progress, and let's dive in. Welcome back, friends. If you are new here, my name is Melissa. I am the dyer behind Rising Tide Fiber Company. Today I have a few finished objects. It's been a couple of weeks since we've chatted about knitting. And so the first thing that I have finished is my Ever After vest. And I just need to weave in some ends. But I am really pleased with how this came out. It blocked out beautifully. So if you're new here, this is a test knit for Claire Jackson of Perfectly Knotted. I have test knit for her once before, and she just does a really great job of running her test knits. And I knit this on a US 6, and I used, it calls for a worsted weight yarn, but we did have the option to use a DK held with some sort of mohair, suri, that kind of thing. So I elected to use Rising Tide Calvert DK in the Petal Power colorway, and I held it with Rising Tide Fiber Coo Somerset Suri Silk in Flamingo. This didn't use a ton of yardage. I think it was about 2 skeins, a little over 2 skeins in my Calvert DK, and then about a skein and a half of the Suri. This was due at the end of November, but it's been bumped a week, so now it's not due to be finished until December. So I've done everything I need to do, except I want to weave in my ends, obviously, and then I just need to get photographs in it, and that will be done. The other test knit that I have been working on had a due date of November 19th. I am finished except for weaving in my ends and just seaming it up, but it has been blocked, and that is the Flannel Crush Cowl by Samantha Guerin. I've test knit numerous times for Samantha Guerin. She runs a really clean test knit as well. This is knitted in the same style as the Grid Gambit. It uses a skein of Spin Cycle and a skein of Sport Weight yarn, and I don't own any Spin Cycle, so I opted to use Feederbrook Farms Entropy DK. I had 90 grams of a skein that I have left over in Dark Matter, which is like this purpley color running through. I had 90 grams of it and I knew I wouldn't use the whole thing. So I opted to do that, and then I dyed this mauvey pink color. It doesn't really have a formal name. I've been kind of referring to it as like a Valentine colorway. This was knit on a US 4. Again, I just need to seam it up, and it is a bandana style cowl, again, like the Grid Gambit by Samantha Guerin. I am really pleased with this. I did block it out to the designated dimensions. And I got a little nervous. You may remember when I first started that we started out with gray, and I knew that was going to be behind my neck, so it wouldn't really matter. But in the evenings when I was knitting on this with friends on Zoom, when I would show it to people, there's not a lot of contrast. And so there were a couple of us that were testing this, and they all had a lot of contrast in theirs, and mine just didn't. But I do really love the way that this came out. And I think as I pulled into the darker plums, you definitely can see those the patterning. And there are a few floats on the back. I'm pretty pleased with how mine look. I'm really excited to, again, get this photographed, and I anticipate this pattern, since our deadline was the 19th, I anticipate like a Thanksgiving or early December release for this. It's so lovely. It knits up so quickly. I think it's perfect for gift knitting. If it comes out at the beginning of December, you could totally get one done in time for the holidays. I have one other finished object. It is not a test knit. My test knits are now pretty much complete. But it is a sock that I started. The last time you saw it, I was here. And this is the Till There Was You in Talbot fingering. Couldn't remember my own base. This was a sock set that I had dyed up, not this past summer, but the summer before. I knit my socks on a 9-inch US 1, which is 2.25 millimeter needle. If you're new around here, I cast on 64 stitches. I do a 2x2 ribbing for 1 inch, and then from the tip of my cuff down to my heel, I do 7 inches, and then I do a slip stitch heel flap, turn my heel, and then for my shoe size, it is 7¼ inches till I need to start decreasing for my toe. And for me, a slip stitch, a traditional heel flap and gusset fits my foot really well. So I'm really glad to have these off the needles. I had one done because it was on display in the mobile yarn truck. And now that I'm pretty sure I don't have any left. So now that they're done, I was able to cast on the second one, and now I have a fresh pair of socks. The ends are woven in and ready to go for winter. Now on to works in progress. My first work in progress is the DK weight socks that I have been working on from my Witchy Wool and Vampire Vibes Halloween countdown. And it was inspired by the first 4 books by Nancy Warren in the Vampire Knitting Diaries. This was week 2's colorway. And I have finished my first sock. I thought I would have the second one cast on this morning, but I didn't get around to it. So I just have the one. I'm clearly behind. November's already here. I want to at least get this sock, its mate, finished. And then I might hold off on the other ones for a little bit because we are coming into December, and I have some weekly sock sets and Advent socks coming in. This year, I'll be opening up my own Advents that Rising Tide did. I had 2, one based on For the Love of Cats and one based on For the Love of Dogs. I think I have a game plan set in place for that yarn, but I also had 4 weekly countdowns this year for sock sets, For the Love of Tea, For the Love of Coffee, For the Love of Plants, and For the Love of Stories. So once I know that those have all landed, then there will be one of each in some weight. They might be mixed up. I had 70-gram sock sets, 120-gram sock sets, and then 120-gram DK weight socks. So I don't know. I think a couple of them I'll be knitting in DK. Maybe a couple will be, a full sock set. Some might be a micro sock set. But there should be one of each for me to have to knit through. Am I going to knit 4 pairs of socks every week? No. But I do have a few favorites in each of them that I just really loved the way that they came out. So I might choose my favorite of the 4 each week to work through. But I also have a couple of self-striping sock sets that I ordered. Freckled Whimsy is supposed to be coming, and Woolens and Nosh. So I have both of those. And then I also got a weekly countdown sock set from Legacy Fiber Arts. Theirs had to do with the movies. And so I got micro sock sets from them. So I'd really love to, just in my, without counting my Rising Tide, that is 3 pairs of socks a week. So there is definitely no way I could work through those. So that was a really lovely tangent to say, I want to finish this mate and then work on getting some needles cleared so that I can actually spend December working on things that I actually want to work on. My DK weight socks, I do knit them on a 9-inch circular, just like I do my fingering weight socks, but these I knit on a US 3, and I only cast on 48 stitches, and then it's still 1 inch of ribbing, 6 inches till I start my heel. And then again, it's still the 7 1/4 inches to fit my foot before I start my decreases for my toe. So hopefully the next time we chat about knitting, I will have its mate done and in preparation for freeing up some needles. I have not cast on the mate to my Raven sock. The first one is hanging up in the mobile yarn truck right now. So I have a show when this comes out on YouTube. I will be at the Maryland Alpaca Festival. So that's my last show for the year. So once the trailer is back and I can take that sock out, I will work on its mate. But I did pick back up my Ruby and Roses sock. You may remember, it's probably been about almost a month since I started this sock. It was in the Homebody colorway, which is a skein of yarn. I think this is her Plump Rose. It's an 85 Superwash Merino, 15% nylon. And for me, I wound this sock up, and boy, did my winder not like it. I ended up with only, I think I have like 15% of the hank of yarn. Is kind of in a tangled mess. I started to throw it away. I did keep it in case I needed it, but I don't typically use a full skein of yarn when I knit a pair of socks. So I have almost finished the first one. I didn't put a progress keeper, but I think I was somewhere like halfway through my leg. I'm now ready to decrease for my toe. I worked on this last night to knit through the foot. I worked on it the other night at my guild meeting, working through my decreases. And so I'm ready to start decreasing for my toe. And then I will probably immediately cast on the second one, because I do think that I could get this finished. I don't really want just one lingering sock in a sock yarn that's not my own yarn. It's not like this is going to go on display anywhere. This is for my personal sock drawer. So I will probably try and cast the other one on right away. So then that will ultimately free up needles if I finish it this month. The other skein, I did start a new project. I have a couple of new projects. So the first one is a pair of socks. I am a huge fan of West Yorkshire spinners. So every holiday season, I get whatever the holiday yarn is. And this year it's called Mulled Wine, and it has gold stellina in it. And so it looks like this. And It's beautiful. I mean, I always love their holiday colorways, but this one is subtly self-striping. So I have started the leg. You can see that I think I have another inch, maybe inch and a half. I will do 7 inches for my leg, but I am loving the way that this is turning out. I don't have, I don't have the tag with me. I don't know what I did with it, but West Yorkshire Spinners is a BFL yarn. It is a little bit more rustic feeling, so if you're not crazy about a sock yarn that's not super, super soft, then you may not be a fan. I feel like it's pretty soft, but it does definitely have that more rustic feel to it. But I'm really excited. This is a sock that I don't mind if it's still on the needles when we get into December, because it is a holiday yarn. It won't hurt my feelings if I have one needle dedicated to those, but I would like to have them off the needles by December 1st so that I can maybe use that needle for some of my holiday sock sets that are coming in. The other project that I cast on, if you are on my newsletter list, and if you're not, you want to be, so I'll put the link for that down in the description box. I promise I don't really spam a whole lot with salesy emails. I send an email out on Tuesdays called Tuesday Tidbits. I talk about what am I watching, what am I reading, what am I knitting, what might be coming up for my business. It's just really meant to be short, sweet for you to kind of like scan, get what you want from it, and move on. And then it's been like every other Friday, I've been sending out an email called the Friday Focus, and I just share with you a pattern that I am loving. And that maybe isn't in like the top 20 on Ravelry. And this past Friday, I did share that I was looking forward to the Joji Locatelli One Love Mystery Knit Along. And she has created a one skein project that takes roughly about 420 yards of fingering weight yarn, but she did say you could use any weight yarn. So if you wanted to do it in DK or worsted, you totally could, as long as you had the right amount of yardage. And so I love Joji's patterns. I think she writes a really clean pattern. I'm not a big fan of mystery knit alongs typically, but for her, she's a designer that I trust, and I like her overall aesthetic in her patterns. So I was really excited. I have a lot of friends that are doing it. So I did cast on. I have completed clue 1. I believe clue 2 is dropping when this comes out. So it is slated to be knit on a US 7, but I'm using a US 6. I'm a little bit looser of a knitter anyway, so I went down the needle size. And I'm using my Talbot fingering in Passage of Time. So if you have not completed clue 1 by chance, you might want to look away, and I'll let you know when you can look back if you don't want to be spoiled by the first clue. So here is my colorway, Passage of Time. It is a really pale, it has really pale flecks of lavender, but then it's speckled with golds and pinks and blues and yellows. It is really meant to be a very, gentle, feminine colorway. And so again, look away if you don't want to be spoiled. But this is a crescent shaped shawl, and my needle not cooperating. And so the first clue had this little bit of lace at the bottom. So you can see it's a very light and airy gauge. I am hitting gauge on a US 6. So I am looking forward to seeing where this goes. Again, I really trust Hohi's judgment. If you were looking away because you didn't want to be spoiled, please feel free to look back. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the next clue is. I think there are 6 clues, so it's really palatable if we're taking one skein of fingering, breaking it into 6 parts. Obviously, as the shawl grows, this small, what looks like a swatch, didn't take very long at all because of the nature of the garter knitting, but I'm loving it. So I'm excited to see how it turns out. And of course, ultimately, it will be a lovely display piece for the colorway on my mobile yarn shop. Now moving on to what I'm watching. So as for what I'm watching, I'm not watching a whole ton of things. If you've been around here for a while, you know that I have gravitated away from reality TV, which used to be my bread and butter, because life in general is just really chaotic and dramatic, I feel like, in our news cycles. And I have noticed, I think I have found why I have been so disengaged with watching television or Netflix or whatever. And I think it stems from the overuse of watching like reels and things on Instagram. And I have been trying to not just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. And what I was finding is that I was picking up my phone and then I'm picking it up to do something else, but then I'm hitting that social media button. And next thing I know, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Threads, and I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And I'm not even doing what it was that I got on my phone to do. So I tried to do that mode where you tell your phone like you only want to spend an hour a day on social media. But then when it gives you the notification, you can totally change it and bypass it. And that just is not working for me. What I have found is working for me is I clump all my apps together. Like, this is all my banking, this is all my business, this is health, this is shopping, this is social media. Like, they were all clumped. So I just took that clump of social media and scrolled to the last homepage and stuck it there. So that if I need to go on Instagram for something, I have to be really deliberate. And what that means is now when I pick up my phone because I need to check something on my email, because I don't get any notifications on my phone except for text messages and phone calls. Like emails, social media, I have always had all those notifications turned off because I don't want them, because I don't want to be constantly bombarded by my phone. So I actually have found in the past week that since I've moved it, I have been picking up my phone a lot less, or I pick up my phone and I'm like, oh, it's not there. And because I don't want to deliberately scroll over there and get on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, I have found that it's working really well for me. There have been a couple nights where I've gone to bed and I've gotten on an Instagram to look for something, and then I do end up spending, 45 minutes scrolling reels and really looking for the ones that I want to focus on, but then I end up focusing on all these. It's a process, but I do think that the nature of social media was beginning to chip away at my attention span. Hence, why I haven't been interested in watching a whole lot of television unless it's something that I absolutely love. Like when I was watching The Gilded Age and Outlander, and that I still will watch long form video here on YouTube because that's where all my knitting podcasts are. I do find that entertaining. And I have opened up a few things. The other night I watched The White House Effect on Netflix. I will share a link to it, but I'll also share a link to a New York Times article that I had read. It is a documentary on Netflix on the climate crisis. And what was interesting about this one is that we all know that documentaries can be built or framed to support whatever it is that you're trying to get across. But this one was interesting to me in regards to the climate crisis because it was built completely of nothing but old news clips. So I found that really fascinating, and it's really hard to spin a documentary if you're only utilizing old footage. Like you don't have experts in different fields coming on and being talking heads. So I found it really interesting. I kind of commend the people who did it because I can't imagine how long it took to just kind of wade through all kinds of old news and political footage. So that was really interesting to me. If you are curious about the climate crisis and why our summers are so dreadful now, then I think you should watch it. That takes me into what I've been reading. One of the more recent books I have finished, I will preface this, I have been in the dye studio. I was in the dye studio all last weekend and the first part of this week. I have been winding mini skeins galore for Advents, packaging up Advents. So all of that time I have audiobooks running instead of like the television. So I have gone through quite a few audiobooks or tag teamed audiobooks and then the hardcover at night. So this may feel like a lot. It's not really, but it is pretty much everything that I got through in this past week. So the first one, or not really the first one, but one that I finished recently was All That Life Can Afford by Emily Everett. I think this was like Reese Witherspoon book club pick. Maybe it was Read with Jenna, but I think it's Reese. This was one that I've been waiting quite a long time for through my library system. This one was really interesting. It is a contemporary fiction novel, and we're following a young gal who didn't have the greatest upbringing. She's from the United States. She grew up, I wouldn't say poor, but definitely lower middle class. Her mom passes away, and she ends up going to study abroad in London. And so that's where this book takes place. And she's really struggling financially. She's working as a tutor. And she kind of gets involved with this one family who hires her privately to do some SAT tutoring with their daughter. And she gets in the mix of one of their other daughters and her circle of friends, and she ends up kind of pretending to live a life that she doesn't really have. And it was really interesting to, of course, that does end up biting her in the behind at one point in the book. And it did have a lovely ending. I can say that everything ties up nicely in the end, but it was interesting to watch somebody really struggle and then struggle through the consequences. So that was a really good book. Another book that I finished was Wild Dark Horses. This has been all over my social media. It's been all over BookTube. People are raving about this book. Like, they love this book. It's not very long either. It's 302 pages. And I will say, I didn't hate this book, but I did not love this book. Like, I thought, like, What is everyone so in love with? I will say that the writing itself is beautiful. It is very rich and lyrical. Like, it is beautifully written. However, I was really bored for the first 80% of this book. I just kept thinking there's an air of mystery to it. We're following a woman. If you're unaware of what this book is about, we are following a woman. What is her name? Rowan. So we're following this woman, Rowan, who goes out in search for her husband he's on a work science trip in Antarctica, and her boat ends up crashing and she is washed ashore. She is badly beaten up by the sea. She is rescued by, I think his name is Dominic. Yeah, Dominic Salt. He has 3 children. They're living up there. And basically, they are living up there, and underground in Antarctica is like this seed storage. Like, every seed, even extinct seeds in regular nature, are stored here. And so there's this air of nature, because obviously when she starts healing, her husband's not there. And the guy and his kids, while lovely at times, they're kind of sketchy. So the first 80% of this book, I am just like, not really what the heck is going on, but I'm like, can we just get to the point? And for me, the first 80% was a little longer than it needed to be. But look out, that last 20%, it was like, holy cow. And I loved the last 20%. I did not like the ending at all. I hated the ending. The first 80% was just okay. But there was that like 18% towards the end that I really loved. Like, it was really riveting, and I was, holding on to that story. I will say I did bounce back and forth between the audiobook and this. The audiobook is narrated beautifully. So while I think I like this book, I don't think that it lived up to all the hype that people were giving it in general. It's not a bad book. I don't like mysteries, so that's the part of it that I needed it to either be a little more thrillery, like that 18% that I really like, or maybe have framed it a little bit more as a mystery, because it does feel like there's these mysterious elements to it that just kind of drove me a little nutty. Another book that I recently finished and primarily did by audiobook, but periodically picked up the hardcover, is Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. You may remember that her previous book, Ready or Not, I had done a colorway called Ready or Not, a sock set. There is still some in the shop. It's beautiful. This is another really beautiful cover. I loved this book. This is about a young woman who lost her best friend to stage 4 cancer. And so she is just in this really weird grieving spiral. And so she's kind of avoiding her parents, who seem at first a little flaky. And really all she can handle in life right now is really just kind of taking on these short-term, like, nannying positions. And so she does kind of stumble upon a really good gig, and she starts watching, I think it's just one little girl. She starts watching this young girl, Ainsley, and the thing about it is Ainsley's uncle is always around, and he's kind of grumpy, and he's just really kind of off-putting at first. And so she does end up kind of taking on the gig a little bit more long-term, because Uncle Miles has told her he knows what it's like to grieve. He will help her through that process. So this is kind of like a forced proximity book, but there are some heavier topics in this as a romance book. Stage 4 cancer. that's kind of, if you're dealing with that or someone in your life is dealing with that, maybe wrong season to read this book. I would definitely read trigger warnings if there are things surrounding grief or death that kind of are sensitive in nature for you. But this was a really great book. I loved it. The next book that I read and listened to was B.K. Borison's First Time Caller. This is the first book in a duology. I believe the second book comes out early this next year. I forget what it's called. I loved this book. In all fairness, I love B.K. Borison. I think she is somewhat local to me, like that she lives in the DMV somewhere. I can't remember. But this one takes place in Baltimore, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this one takes place in Baltimore. So I really loved that. But this one is very much like Sleepless in Seattle, where we have a kid calling into a late night radio show talking about her mom and how she wants to get her to start dating. And next thing we know, her mom ends up working at the radio station, and the gig is that the host is gonna find her dates, and she's gonna go on dates. And if you love Sleepless in Seattle, I think you will love this book. It is very much in that Nora Ephron style rom-com-y nature. I loved it. The next book I read was this one was definitely audio because I had an advanced audio copy of it. It was something that was approved kind of last minute because I think it comes out this month. And so I immediately, like the next day, as soon as I finished an audiobook, I was on this one. This one is Honeymoon Phase by Amy Daws. This is the third one in the Mountain Men Matchmaker series, where we are following the third of 4 Fletcher brothers. And it's interesting how Amy Daws has done this one. This is one series and there are 4 brothers. But the oldest brother is actually the last book in a different series that kind of ties in with this one. I think we are getting a 4th book in this series that will follow that first brother's oldest daughter, who's studying abroad in college. But this one was really lovely. All of these novels kind of work as companion novels, meaning you can read one and it doesn't really spoil a whole lot for any of the others. Like, you already know that in a romance novel, the couple is they're going to end up together. It's just a matter of how do we get there throughout the book. So even if you're reading about how these other people are coupled up, you don't know how they got there. So you could definitely read this as a standalone book. Book 1, the premise was a little shaky for me. I don't really know how I felt about it, but it was a good read overall. This one was just as good. She has become kind of an auto-buy author for me. I find her very witty. The banter is very funny. I do find myself giggling out loud, which I'm sure when I'm outside dyeing yarn in my studio and neighbors hear me chuckling, I'm sure they're like, what is she laughing at? I don't know. Currently what I'm reading, the book that I'm primarily reading when I go to bed is The Good Girls of Maple Lane by Jacqueline Firkins. This is an advanced reader copy. It is out. This one is really cute. We have a veterinary student who, like a year ago, she decided she wanted to volunteer to foster golden retrievers. Like, she loves golden retrievers and nothing ever comes of it. And then she gets this random phone call of this rescue organization that has this golden retriever that they desperately need her to take. And they need her to take it because it is and it has a medical condition. Basically, it had been neglected and overfed. It can't walk on its own. Like, it's going to need a lot of rehabilitation and care. And so she decides she's going to do it, but she doesn't have a car. And so she has got to get up there that day. And she doesn't really know how she's going to do it. But there's this guy that lives in her building that, like, in the middle of the night, it appears he's like smuggling plants in. So she goes down and knocks on his door, and lo and behold, he's like, yeah, sure, I'll drive you. And he's got this beat up old car, but they drive the couple of hours or whatever to go and get this dog. And she ends up being a foster fail from the get-go. Like, she immediately just adopts this dog, knowing that the rescue has agreed to help her with the rehabilitation and all of that. So, super cute. I'm a huge dog lover. So this really, kind of piqued my interest. I will say that it is a little bit, it leans towards that Hallmarky side where, it's not completely closed door, but it is not spicy at all. So if you're worried about the spice level, I haven't found that any spice much at all. Again, it's not completely closed door, but it's not really graphic in nature either. So I'm really enjoying it. I am almost done this one because I need to have it done in a few days so I can review it. So I'm trying to hurry up and finish that one in the next couple of nights. The other book that I have started, I'm primarily listening to it, but I have been picking up the book, and that is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This is a chonker of a book. This came out, June of 2025, so it came out this summer. This one is 530 pages. This is quite a big book. If you like the dark and lyrical V.E. Schwab writing, I think you're going to really like this one. In this one, we're following 3 women in 3 different eras. Like, we have 1532, we're following Maria. Then in 1827, we're in London following Charlotte. And then in 2019, we're in Boston following Alice. So this has a lot of timelines. I will say that the narration of this is pretty spectacular. It has 3 different narrators for the 3 different women. So Julia Whalen is one of them, and she does Maria. The London gal, what is her name? Marissa something, I don't remember. But so she has a European accent, and then the other one is American. So in the audio narration, I have had zero trouble following this story because we have 3 distinctly different sounding women narrating the different characters. This has taken a turn. I want to say I'm about halfway through this book, and it is definitely leaning into, this would have been perfect at Halloween time. But it has taken a couple of turns that I didn't really see coming, and I was like, whoa, I didn't know that was in this book. So if you like V.E. Schwab, or you'd like a darker type of story that is a little more fantasy-ish, then this might be up your alley. That leads me into shop news. So when this video comes out, I am at the Maryland Alpaca Fiber and Fleece Festival. It is Saturday, November 8th and Sunday, November 9th from 9 to 4. I do believe this is a free event. It is at the same fairgrounds that Maryland Sheep and Wool in May is at, only we are only taking up a small portion of the fairgrounds, so it makes it far more walkable. There's another event that takes up another section of the fairgrounds, so this one is far more walkable. The air is crisper, and it's just a really lovely event. I know that some people that don't like to go to Sheep and Wool in the spring love this one because it is smaller in scale. And with the weather crisper, it's just a really nice time to do some gift knitting for yourself or gift shopping for yourself, and maybe picking up yarns to do some gift. On the other front, if you have ordered an advent from me, today is Thursday when I'm filming. All but 4 of the weekly sock set yarn countdowns or advents, they have shipped out. I took them to the post office earlier. I ran out of boxes and they are taking forever. I have had other boxes on order. They should arrive this weekend. That's the only thing holding up regular advents. But while I was at the post office, I did grab some priority boxes for the last 4 sock sets. I will get those out tomorrow. So by the time you guys are seeing this, if you ordered a sock set, it is well on its way to you. And then For the Love of Cats and For the Love of Dogs, those will ship out early next week. Again, I'm just waiting on the boxes. They are done. They are ready. I literally just need boxes to put them in. And again, those boxes, they're just kind of lingering at my local distribution center and have been. So they were supposed to be to me by already. But now it's estimating that they will be to me this weekend, which means I will get them out early next week. I am deliberately trying to take things to the post office in batches. My experiences is when I take tons of things, while I can get my post office to scan everything individually, something happens at the Washington distribution center and it's like things linger because they all look alike or something. I don't know. So to kind of prevent things getting clogged up at the distribution center and potentially getting lost, I take things in batches. I have found that works best. It worked really well with all the Halloween boxes. So I'm hoping that with the holidays shipping, it'll be no problem. So once I know that all of those packages have landed at their destinations, I will get the extras up on my website, and I will try and put that in like my newsletter and on social media. I will make a point to get on Instagram and post it. There are not very many extras. I really just try to make sure that I have enough so that if a package does end up somewhere random or gets lost, I have a replacement. So there will not be a ton of extras, but there will be a handful of everything. A life update. Everything is going swimmingly. Work has been improving. It's not great, but it has been improving. I can say that. And once I get all the advents out early next week, that will be a huge weight off my shoulder. As you probably know, we as dyers, it's a huge undertaking for us to get them dyed, get them wound, get everything out. So I will be glad to have that off my plate and know that everything has successfully landed where it was supposed to land. So next weekend, I am supposed to be going on a retreat with my local knitting guild. I haven't been on a knitting retreat in probably like a decade. I've only been on one other that was with a knitting group I used to belong to, and I hated that experience. So I have intentionally shied away from knitting retreats in general because I just had a really bad experience on my first one. And it was one that I had even taken my mom with me. And I don't think she had the best time either. This go round, I have never gone on my guild's retreat before, but I am looking forward to this one because the person running the workshops is Anne Weaver of Plied Yarns. So we will get a trunk show with Plied Yarns. I'm excited about that. But she is doing like steeking, like we're steeking sweaters. So while we didn't have to knit our own, basically we're steeking thrifted sweaters. So there's no emotion attached to it. So I'm excited to do that process. I've never steeked anything. My mom is going as well. I know that she has steeked socks to do like afterthought. Heels, I've always done forethought heels, so didn't have to cut my yarn. So I'm interested to see how this one goes. I am a little bit worried because the itinerary looks really full, and I'm one of those people that I eventually hit a wall with peopling. So it'll be interesting to see how this experience goes. I have high hopes that it will be far better than my first experience. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving here in the United States. My parents are hosting it. They host it every year. I know my husband really looks forward to going and having Thanksgiving with my family. It is just my parents, me, my husband, my sister. Like, it's a small, intimate affair. It is not the huge Thanksgivings I grew up with in my like high school years with my great grandparents, my grandmother, my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Like, it's not that kind of nonsense, but it's a nice small family gathering. My dad pretty much does all the cooking. I don't like instant mashed potatoes, so I always volunteer to make mashed potatoes from scratch, and then I do make a few random things, like my husband doesn't like dressing, so he wants stovetop. So I make some simple things like that to kind of round out palettes. So I'm really looking forward to Thanksgiving because it's just a really nice time. I am off that whole entire week, so I'm hoping to get a lot of planning for next year done, doing a quick inventory to make sure my numbers are right. Before holiday shopping starts. So that is everything I have for you. So as we approach Thanksgiving here in the United States, I would love to know, what is your favorite dish at Thanksgiving? My dad makes something called baked pineapple. It's a family recipe on my dad's side of the family. Like, I love it so much, and so does my sister, that my dad actually, he makes a pan of it for Thanksgiving, but then he makes my sister her own pan and me my own pan to take home as leftovers. So that is my favorite dish, but I would love to know, do you have a favorite if you celebrate Thanksgiving, even if you have like Canadian Thanksgiving, which I know was a few weeks ago? I'd love to know, what is your favorite dish at Thanksgiving if you like Thanksgiving meal. And if you don't have a favorite dish, or you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, or maybe you're just not up for sharing that, I'd love to know that you made it to the end of the video. So just give me some kind of Thanksgiving emoji, maybe like a turkey. And until next time, friends, be kind to each other and happy knitting.